guys, here we are. Full patch notes have been released. Don't worry though, this isn't gonna be like a full reaction to every single detail because we've seen like most of them in the manifesto anyway. The most significant ones are still listed here. But you know, this is just basically gonna be my take on what I feel to be the most impactful changes. And yeah, there's a lot of shit. So I will leave the link to the full patch notes in the video description, of course, along with my social. So you know, like, share, and subscribe, and all that beautiful jazz. And yeah, let's get started. So one of the things that I found really nice is that they added 4 new skill gems, which is pretty good. They have a new intelligence skill gem, which is galvanic field, and what it basically does is it's almost like how would I describe this? It's almost like orb of storms, but it attaches to an enemy, so it's basically like an orb of storms slash brand type of thing, where when you shock an enemy while you have the buff, it creates a spherical field of energy attached to the shocked enemy for a duration, which will damage it and other nearby enemies with beams of lightning. And the strength of the field depends on the magnitude of shock affecting the enemy, which is when it is created. So basically, what they're doing is that they're making more players encouraged to have shock now. But you know, I think it's a good change, but you know, it's fairly a long way away from other skills, because you know, you've still got strong fire damage, you've got strong cold damage. Lightning damage is still kind of in a gray zone, but this is a nice step. And they added another one, which is lightning conduit rather. And what it does is that lightning will strike all shocked enemies around a targeted location, then remove the shocks from those enemies. And the shocks increases by, I think, 10% more per enemy that has been removed of shock. So if you shock the area and then they hit those enemies and they remove the shock after the hit, what happens is that it'll count how many enemies were in that area and give you the percent amount of more damage per enemy that has been removed of shock. So that's pretty nice. There could be some very interesting things done with that. And they also have overcharge, which is a new support. It's basically like overshock, because what it does is that it supports any skills that will hit enemies, granting it a chance to shock but causing them to deal less damage. But supported skills will shock enemies as though dealing more damage. So it's basically it amplifies the shocking hit, if I'm not mistaken. So that is pretty good. I've seen the skill itself. Let's just open it up here. Open a new tab. So where is that? Down here. Harness new gem. Here we are. So you see here, overcharge support. Yeah, supported skills will shock enemies as though dealing 500% more damage, and that is at level 1. So we're not sure if we're gonna see an increase in that effect, because that is really strong. But I'm sure that we are more likely to have a reduced amount of less damage per level, or as the levels go higher, or maybe an increased chance to shock, which will proc the 500% more damage more frequently. So that is what I am seeing as what they'll do to that. And they also have a new dexterity skill gem, which is going to be Alchemist's Mark, and this is basically for builds that they're trying to emphasize this for builds that are not the poison stackers or the ignite stackers or anything like that, but the ones that deal one-hit poisons or one-hit ignites that are extremely strong, because what it does is that it curses a single enemy, granting flask charges when you hit them and creating burning ground under them if the hit ignites them, or caustic ground if it poisons them. And damage modifiers do not apply to these ground effects. And of course you can still have only one mark at a time, but the Alchemist's mark is also said to have benefits from increased mark effect. So you can increase the effect of your marks for the damage of the burning ground or the caustic ground to increase. That is basically pretty nice. And apart from that, things that I've found really cool though is that with Archnemesis, well, basically what they've done is that they're still trying to move forward with the decluttering of monsters, so to speak, where you don't have that many monsters in the map or basically on your screen, for example, and they're trying to amplify the rewards as well that you get, so that it's basically almost like the way Last Epoch works. It's pretty nice, of course. Yeah. I like the mob generation in Last Epoch. So what they've done here, as you can see, that they've lowered the number of rare and magic monsters encountered through various league encounters. Basically, they're just reducing the amount of rares and magic monsters everywhere, even in Doriani's Machinarium. And one important thing to note as well is that they're also going to nerf some of the passives in the Atlas. As you can see here, the immune response will be 50% more non-unique monsters now instead of 100, and blight monsters will spawn 100% faster from 150%, so they're toning it down a little bit. And the Abyssal Army is also halved in strength. The Unspeakable Offensive from the Harbinger Atlas passive will no longer have 60% more minions, so that is kind of sad, at least a little bit, because I love Harbingers, but hopefully we'll see some good balancing, because what they've done with the Archnemesis mods is that they basically work like before, where Kitava's Touched will actually give you something pretty good, and that's what they've done. For example, the Kitava Touched rare monster now will upgrade the tiers of items that the enemy will drop. So if, for example, they are gonna have a high amount of rares drop, what's gonna happen is that those rares will turn into uniques, and any magic items that will drop will be rares, and so on. So that's a pretty good way of getting some unique items. And Solaris Touched, if I'm not mistaken, will be the modifier that will drop a bunch of maps. So there's a pretty interesting addition to map sustain, so that's gonna be nice. And of course they all stack together as well, so if, for example, Solaris Touched and Kitava Touched are combined, it's gonna be pretty hurtful. Those maps that will drop will become either magic maps, or if they were rare maps already, they will turn into unique maps. So that is pretty interesting to see. I'm also curious if there's gonna be, if Innocence Touched is still going to be converting all drops into currency, so that's gonna be pretty nice to see. And so yeah, that's basically how Archnemesis is gonna work from now on. Pretty nice. So continuing on with the nerfs, the amount of rare monsters, Flash Breach will now have 20% monster density compared to 30% before, and of course area of effect is also going to be a little shorter. And during the campaign, it seems that they have guaranteed or adjusted the rares there to only have 1 or 2 modifiers. And then once you go into maps, you're not going to encounter monsters with 1 modifier now, and you'll mostly encounter monsters with 2 to 3 modifiers. And because of this, 4 mod monsters are gonna show up again. I think they're gonna show up in, highly juiced tier 16 maps, so that's gonna be pretty interesting. Here we are. So here we go with the detail. If you defeat a monster with the Corruptor mod, all of its drops become corrupted. So it's basically almost how Archnemesis works before. And what they said here is that if you're lucky, you can find these conversion modifiers on both the 3rd and 4th mod of a rare monster. This causes them to stack together, so it's basically like I said. So it's pretty interesting to see what's gonna happen. You know, we may see some lucky drops from people. It's gonna be nice. And also, because of that though, the Valley of Darkness will be removed as a result of these changes, and the Stream of Consciousness Keystone will be moved to the place of the Valley of Darkness position, so it's gonna be a little bit awkward to get immediately. And what they said as well is that magic monsters will now have a restricted list of Archnemesis modifiers compared to rares, but you know, at least they have toned down all the modifiers that can spawn on magic monsters, so at least we won't see too many sudden deaths right now, like compared to what we experienced during the start of 3.18, so that's going to be pretty nice. And one thing that I really like though, a personal note, Storm Strider modifier will no longer trigger a lightning mirage when hit, so I can say goodbye to those pesky lightning mirages and I can stay still longer and in a more safe mindset. So yeah, that's nice. And oh, there's a good part as well. Monsters that can block with the Sentinel Benevolent Guardian modifiers will now take 20% of damage from the hits that they block. So despite them blocking the attack, they'll still get some damage, which is nice. And with Beyond, long story short, Beyond has been replaced with Scourge now completely. And I love it, it's beautiful. Because, you know, Beyond technically really was outdated. I mean, Chris Wilson said it himself, it's 8 years old. And even the art assets were just pretty old. It's basically just monsters, regular monsters back then, just dumped in red paint, is what he said. So there you go. You can pause this if you'd like. This is the whole area, or this is the whole description. But basically what's happened is that Scourge has effectively replaced Beyond. And what has been done as well is that because that has been the case, we will get tainted currency items again. And the Beyond bosses are guaranteed to drop multiple tainted currency, so that is pretty nice, right? And they also have said that adjustments have been made to the outcome odds for the Tainted Orb Fusing, Jeweler's Mythic Orb, in order for these items to be suitable for core availability. So that's pretty alright, but hey, the items are there. I am not complaining. And all tainted currency items will now have dedicated slots in the stash tab, which is nice. Quality of life a little bit. And the new Beyond monsters do not drop scourged items yet, so I don't know. You know, we may see that in the future. And what they've done is that they've also changed the Atlas passives for this. The Fiendish Opulence will now guarantee an additional basic currency item from 25%. So that is nice. And they've toned down the small passives leading to Fiendish Opulence. So I think I will be going for Beyond this league because it's interesting, it's nice, more currency, beautiful. Right? Now the Scent of Blood will now grant an additional 10% chance for maps to attract Beyond demons. So that's pretty interesting to see. The Torn Veil Notable will now grant Beyond portals in your maps have a 30% increased chance to spawn a unique boss. So basically the Scourge bosses will show up now, which is pretty interesting. We have to ready a lot of physical and chaos damage. I'm just happy that we don't have the damage amplifier of the Scourge, because that is extremely difficult to handle. But yeah, so that is what they changed now, and they've done it. They've changed Harvest, and it has been amazing. There is a lot of changes to Harvest. So the long story short though is that they have reduced the overall amount of monsters, number one. Number two, monsters will be spawning sequentially in Harvests as well, so they're not going to show up as a big group and then suddenly burst you down. So it will arrive sequence, which is, I think, pretty nice. And lastly, harvest is tradable, because what they've done now is that instead of getting the crafts before, right, and then saving them in your horticrafting station, what you get now in harvest is life force. And this is basically like a currency, or I don't know, how do you call it? It's like it basically works the same as the old harvest, where, you know, you have to fill up a specific amount of life force, right? And that life force is what you're gonna use to craft in your horticrafting station, in your hideout, and the horticrafting station itself will already have all of the available modifier, or all of the available crafts that you can use, and you just need to either farm the life force to use it. And there are still 3 types: the vivid, the wild, and the primal. So you'll have to get those, and the special one, which is from Oshabi, and I think that's going to be pretty strong. But yeah, you're going to need those 3 life force types in order to craft your specific modifier, or in order to use your specific crafts which you'd like. But the good thing here is that, I mean, you can either trade these, you know, buy them, or even sell them if you're not that interested in harvest anyway. You can just sell the life force and make a profit out of it. And they're also going to buff the tier 4 seeds, or the tier 4 bosses, so that is great. So you're going to encounter Oshabi a lot more frequently, and you are going to have, I guess, a lot of crafting now. Although they have said the harvest crafting options will be overhauled, and many have been rebalanced and tweaked, while others have been removed or found new homes. So I'm guessing that the augment and the augment annul is gonna be changed somewhat, or maybe just the augments will be removed. I'm guessing that's gonna be the case, but hey, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure you fine gentlemen have a problem with having augments removed. I'm sure you guys are strapping young crafters. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's a nice change. And one important reminder though is that since that is what's gonna happen, your harvest crafts now will be deleted once 3.19 is live. So if you have any of them in standard, or if you're still saving up on them, you have to use them. And now, because of that as well, the bumper crop, or they have some changes to the atlas as well pertaining to the harvest crafts, or the harvest in particular. And what they've done is that bumper crop will now give you a 50% chance to gain an additional harvest. So that has been halved from guaranteeing an additional harvest. And the Heart of the Grove notable passive will give you a 60% increased chance to contain a tier 4 plant instead of having a guaranteed Sacred Blossom. I mean, at least that's good. That'll give you more chances to have the tier 4 plant show up. And of course, they've already buffed the base chance as well, so giving it a little bit more of a buff is also going to be pretty good. The Bountiful Harvest will now give you a 10% chance to spawn an additional monster from 50%, so that has been nerfed slightly. And Small Harvest passives that will give you an additional crafting option will now give you an increased quantity of life force, because that is what you're going to use now to craft. And then the Sextant modifier, where plants harvested in your maps are more likely to give less common crafting options, of course is going to be useless. They've replaced that with a modifier that will cause life force dropped by harvest monsters to be duplicated. So that's going to give you a lot of possibilities to increase your life force immediately. So you can either, I'm not sure though if that's going to be expensive, we'll still have to see, but you know, if it becomes expensive, then maybe we can sell harvest life force for profit, you know? So yeah, that is very, very interesting. So yeah, really nice. I like it. So yeah, that's man, that's just really it's really exciting. But with these good news comes strange news as well. They're trying to make divine orbs more expensive, and the reason why is that what their mindset is that you use the exalted orbs to basically get get as many affixes on your item as possible, and then divining them to perfect them, right? So what they're going to do now is that some of the metacrafts have been changed in recipes, so you don't need to use exalted orbs to make them. So you're gonna have to use divine orbs now, and the cannot roll attack mods will also be 1 divine orb, and the cannot roll caster mods will also be 1 divine orb. So that is actually pretty nice. But the weird thing here is that veiled modifiers that had a divine orb cost when crafted now have an exalted orb or chaos cost instead. Interesting to see what is going to be expensive. And of course, divine orb sold by Tujin. I'm thinking Tujin may be a little bit more expensive now when running him, or more beneficial. Now what's going to happen there is that divine orbs are going to cost the same as exalted orbs, both in the ritual and in Tujin, and they've basically made some adjustments to the heist trinkets for the divine orbs as well. And the amazing thing though is that Forbidden Shaco, Judging Voices, and Ventur's Gamble, and the Risk have an increased drop chance, which is pretty interesting. And the one thing here is that the Bestiary recipe, where you can basically divine your item, is going to be changed. It just changes a Gilded Scarab to a Wing Scarab now. And 6-link items can be traded for a stack of fusing orbs instead of a divine orb. So that is interesting. And apart from that, they have also removed the Palace map, where you can get this card in particular, the Sephiroth. As you can see here, the High Templar, or the Hallowed Husk, is basically like the monster version of Dominus. That map has been removed for now. The only map that remains is going to be the High Templar Dominus in the Villa. So if you guys want to farm your divine orb cards, I think the Villa is going to be the only place where you're going to have to go to right now. So yeah, that is going to be scary. But yeah, that has been the changes for that. So I'm thinking that divine orbs are going to be pretty expensive now. Now to unique items though. This is going to be pretty interesting, because one thing that I've noticed is that the Bramblejack will now have the 1000% return damage. So, you know, maybe you can use an unwavering stance and the taunt as a build. Excuse me. And the Bringer of Rain. The Bringer of Rain is actually really strong now. As you can see here. Where is that? The Bringer of Rain will now be supported by socketed, or the support gems will now be supported by level 30 melee fizz, faster attacks, and blind from level 18. So that is really big. And it'll also give you a higher gap in maximum life from 200 to 220. Now it's going to be 200 to 300. Excuse me. So yeah, that's a really nice and strong buff. And one thing for you lacerated build boys that are gonna try out my build, I'm thinking that Dareso's Courage is going to be the shield that we should go for, because it will now give you 100% chance to block attack damage if you have blocked spell damage recently, and 100% chance to block spell damage if you have blocked attack damage recently. So what does that mean? You essentially just have to get your attack block maxed, and that'll give you spell block cap. So that means that we don't need to worry about spell suppression at all, which is very, very nice. Because essentially, if you have if you have a 1 in 4 chance to block attacks, then that'll give you a guaranteed ability to block spells. And then once you do block a spell, your attack block is then guaranteed. So as long as you can get your attack block to a reasonably high amount, your spell block is going to be capped. So that essentially opens up more suffixes for the Lacerate Crimson Dance build to use. So that is really, really strong. I'm pretty certain that this is going to be a very expensive item now because of what it can do. But yeah, for me, the Reso's Courage is great. It's insane. It's amazing. It even gives you all res. What the hell? What else? Heat Shiver. I saw Heat Shiver earlier. Where is that? Heat Shiver seems very interesting to me. Where are you? Here we are. The unique helmet. It'll no longer give you increased cold damage if you've used this fire skill recently, or increased fire damage if you've used this cold skill recently. What's gonna happen now is that it'll gain 1% of cold damage as extra fire damage per 1% of chill effect that you have applied on the enemy. And you will gain 100% of cold damage as extra fire damage against a frozen enemy. So that means your chill effect can give you an amazing amount of fire damage. And if you have a high freeze chance as well, you're gonna have an even more amazing amount of damage. So yeah, that is for me a really strong dual elemental buff for Heat Shiver. I think it may be build enabling. Very, very strong. And Mark of the Red Covenant as well. Where's Mark of the Red Covenant? Here we are. The unique helmet no longer has increased movement speed, but it will now give Summon Raging Spirits 175 to 250% increased damage. And with the buffs to Raging Spirits right now, this may seem a core item for a Raging Spirit build. Like, no joke. This is really strong. That is very, very strong. And you combine that with Leer Cast as well. This is great for your Animate Guardians. Like, you now have 50, you and nearby allies before where you gain 15% increased damage is going to be 50% increased damage. That is a really strong buff. So despite the minion nerfs, I'm thinking that you won't feel it that much anyway because of the insane amount of increased damage that the Leer Cast can give if you put that on your Animate Guardian. And oh yeah, Lightning Coil has been buffed. 30% of 50 or 50% of physical damage now from hits taken as lightning damage. I wish it could have been changed to the way like Cloak of Flame works, where 50% of physical damage will be taken as fire, or basically like everything that will deal physical damage will be taken as fire instead of just from hits. I wish they could have changed that. And yeah, Nycta's Lantern, that was a weird change. It'll give you where was that again? Hello. Oh yeah, here we go. It adds a bit of base fire damage, grants Battle Mage, and give you some light radius, although I'm not sure what that'll do. But yeah, and the Obliteration as well, look at that. It'll now give you 30 to 40% of physical damage as extra chaos damage from 13 to 15. That is a huge increase. And the Storm Charger as well, that's one thing that I've been amazed to see. Where is the Storm Charger? The Storm Charger. Here we go. The Storm Charger will now have a 1 to 40% increased movement speed. Sure, you have the single digit values, but you can go up to 40% increased movement speed on it. It is really, really strong. And with the changes to the lightning ailments as well, you also have increased effect of lightning ailments, and increased duration of lightning ailments. This could be a really nice unique to use on your lightning builds, if any of you are gonna try. I may even actually try it on the Absolution. I don't know. But yeah, that is really, really amazing. And of course, with the Atlas changes, what they've done is that Spoils of War has been removed. It's basically the rare monster increase. They've taken that off, and they've replaced that with new Atlas notables, where you can choose either Nico, June, Einhar, or Alba to have an increased chance of showing up. So yes, that's pretty okay. And what else? Here we're basically down to the manifesto part again. So yeah, I guess that about just covers it. So yeah, that has been at least my take on it. These are changes that I feel will be pretty strong, and it is very, very interesting to see. So again, guys, if you want to read the full patch notes, I'm gonna put them in the video description, and yeah, you can take a look at all of the other changes in detail. But I am seeing a lot of amazing changes. I personally don't care about any of the nerfs. I'm just happy to see all of these other changes. You know, I'm very happy with them. Very interesting. I just hope though that we do have more melee changes in the future, because that is what they did hint at. So you know, I hope it comes sooner, because I am pretty hyped about it. But yeah, that has been it, guys. I'm sorry if it took a little bit longer than usual. I think it's yeah, a little over 30 minutes. But yeah, I mean, there has just been a lot of changes, and there are a lot of things that we can go through. So that is only what I'm gonna go for. And if you want to look through more, we'll have the full patch notes there for you. So yeah, that has been it, and I shall be seeing you all during League Start, hey? Ooh, lot of changes.